All praise is due to Allah. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the one true and living God who came in the person of Master Conrad Muhammad. We thank Almighty God, Allah, and we could not thank Him enough for raising up in the midst of the black man and woman of America a divine leader, a divine teacher, and a divine and perfect guide and example in the person of Allah's messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. In this day and time, we are equally grateful to Allah and grateful to His messenger for raising up yet another man in our midst. And that man is today none other than God's divine reminder, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In their names, brothers and sisters, it is my privilege and honor this Sunday afternoon to greet you with the greeting words that mean peace and paradise in the Arabic language. We say again, Assalamu alaikum. How's everyone this afternoon? All praise is due to Allah. We thank Allah for your presence this afternoon, and we thank our brother ministers that spoke before us this afternoon. And I want to give a special hand to Brother Tracy because this was his first time speaking on a Sunday. Let's give him a well-deserved hand. Brother Tracy is from a family of preachers. And when he first came into the mosque, he shared with me that his aspiration was to preach. And of course, we who follow the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who are aiding him in his Herculean job of lifting up the black man and woman of America, know that his teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, said that he needed at least 10,000 ministers in the wilderness of North America. So whenever there's a man or woman that has the heart that stands up to say, I want to help the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan deliver the word to the black man and the black woman of America, we absolutely want to give him a chance to do that, because that is a mighty job. It is a most noble job, but it's a very difficult job. And if you are man enough or woman enough and love God enough to want to stand up and uplift this people, then you certainly deserve a hand. Let's give our brother one more hand for standing up. All praise is due to Allah. Today, brothers and sisters, we want to take up a little short subject with you, but a subject that is most critical in terms of us as spiritual people, religious people. And you do know that we Muslims are spiritual people. We are religious people. The difference between us and many other religious people is that to us, our religion is not really a religion, but the Honorable Louis Farrakhan teaches us that our religion is more a way of life. So you see us mixing more spiritual principles with day-to-day living. Our leader is not a man confined to the sanctity of the spiritual house. But like Jesus, he takes spiritual principles into the broader society. That's maybe why he gets in trouble so much in this society. Because most preachers, or many of them, confine their spirituality, their take on society, their opinions to the church, or to the mosque, or to the synagogue. Is that right or wrong? See, but you got to go out into the highways and into the byways. Jesus spoke to the multitudes, right? He went up on the mountaintop. Is that right or wrong? That's where he preached his sermons. This is where you found him. And so Farrakhan is the same way. David, he was a great spiritual man, but he was involved in the struggle of his people. So when Goliath became an obstacle to his people's freedom and independence, David had to slay Goliath. Is that right or wrong? He didn't say, I'm a spiritual man, I can't fight. He didn't say that. He took the battle to the man that standed in the way of his freedom or his people's freedom, and he knew that his God backed him up in that way. Is that right or wrong? So these are spiritual men that had an impact on the world in which they lived. It was political leaders and secular leaders that hated Jesus because he always got involved. He always got in the soup. He always had something to say about their oppression of the peoples that he came to serve. And that's the kind of man Farrakhan is, and that's the kind of community we are. That's why the white man likes to paint us as a political group, but we're not a political group. We are a spiritual group. We are a spiritual group. We are Muslims. Muslim is not a strange religion, and it's not a new religion. Just because you just heard about it does not mean that it's new. It is an ancient religion. In fact, it's the oldest religion known to man. Islam. What does it mean? What does this word Muslim mean? Muslim, as some of you say. It's really pronounced Muslim. It means one who submits to the will of God. Jesus was a Muslim. Yes, he was. Abraham was a Muslim. David, Solomon, Noah, Lot, Abraham, they were all Muslims. They were all those who submitted to the will of God. And that's what we are. Or that's what we're striving to be. Now, as Muslims or spiritual people, there are certain characteristics that we must have to be Muslims. One of the most beautiful and notable characteristics of a Muslim is the characteristic of humility. You have, when you study the scriptures, no arrogant prophets known to us. All the prophets were men, and the prophetess or the women of God were known to be humble men and women. In fact, that's the only way to serve God, much less represent God, is to be humble. Well, when you live in a world like this, that's a strange characteristic. And you almost have to be arrogant just to get respect every day. You wake up in the morning, get on the subway. You have to literally push and shove just to get on the train to get to work every day, because humility is missing as a characteristic in the people of this society. And so a lot of black people, particularly after slavery and the abuse that we suffered under the master, we don't want to really be humble, because to be humble is to be a fool, or to be one that allows people to walk over you in our thinking. Is that right or wrong? So we put on a mask, or we put on a bearing that suggests to the world, look, man, I don't take no stuff off of nobody. And if you come this way, if you start something, there will be something. Is that right or wrong? It's not just black. That's this whole wicked society that we live in. Black, brown, white, red, yellow. This is the way it is in this society. But to be a Muslim, regardless to time or circumstance, we must always manifest the characteristic of humility, for this is one of the essential things that our God, Allah, demands from us. And so our subject today is from the 15th study guide of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that he has given to us in the curriculum called Self-Improvement is the Basis for Community Development. And this study guide is called The Characteristic of Humility. Look now, self-improvement is the basis for community development. You cannot change your sister or your brother. You can't make them into what God desires for them to be, but you can make yourself into what God desires you to be. Is that right or wrong? See, don't try and change someone else. If only he would do right, we would be all right. If only she would do all right. No, 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 no. If only I would do all right. If I would do better. If I would change my ways, then we would be better as a people. That's why the Honorable Louis Farrakhan loves that song by Michael Jackson. I'm looking at the man in the mirror, and I'm asking him to change his ways. That means get up every day, look at a mirror, and that person you see, the him is not someone else. The him is that person that you are looking at in a mirror. I'm not asking so-and-so to change. I'm not asking mama to change. I'm not asking daddy to change. I'm asking him. I'm asking her to change their ways. That's the way we got to be. So it's a beautiful study guide, and you should get it, because it's chock full of things that will help us improve as individuals. And when we improve as individuals, then our families get better. Is that right or wrong? Then when our families get better, what? Our building gets better, right? Then our neighborhood, right? And then our community, and then the black nation. So you see, self-improvement really is the basis for community development. Allahu Akbar. This study guide is a beautiful study guide, and it relates some very beautiful scriptures that I'd like to start out with, and then we'll bring it down to a modern day practical application. In the Holy Quran, in the 25th Surah, Allah reveals, and He it is who made the night and the day to follow each other. For him who desires to be mindful or desires to be thankful, and the servants of the beneficent are they who walk the earth in humility. And when the ignorant address them, they say peace. Now look at the greeting of a Muslim. Assalamu alaikum. This is what we are known for. Is that right or wrong? Yes, no matter where we travel, whether it is in the ghetto, as you say, or a very dangerous situation, we don't greet people hello, because we were taught that hell is always low. And that's what we've always been in as black people, in hell. Is that right or wrong? We don't say hi, because too many of our people are high on crack and cocaine and reefer. Is that right or wrong? No, we greet our people peace. Assalamu alaikum. Even if they don't even know the greeting, we still greet them Assalamu alaikum. And we take on a peaceful bearing, and we actually bow to them in humility. This is what this gesture means. You always see the Muslims doing this. Well, that's what this means. It means I am a humble servant of God, greeting you. I don't intend to do anything against you. I'm not aggressive. I'm not your enemy. I'm your brother and a servant of God. Therefore, I greet you. Assalamu alaikum. So we must, as Muslims, walk the earth in humility. And the Quran says that when we are addressed by the ignorant, we say peace. Now, many times these brothers and sisters in a world like this that does not understand Islam, we are often insulted by the very people that we're trying to raise up. Is that right or wrong? You go forth with the final call paper, and the brothers want to disrespect you because you come as a Muslim. Oh, nigga, get that out of my face. Look at that man in that bow tie. Nigga, take that suit off in the hot summertime. Is this what they say? But we don't fight back. We don't punch the brother in the mouth, or at least we shouldn't. We should greet him peace. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Have a good day. One day you'll understand better. We've been turned down, disrespected, dishonored. You out here selling that paper. Farrakhan is taking all the money. But brother, a Muslim, when he is addressed by the ignorant, according to the Quran, says peace. Now you might think that makes a punk out of you. But have you not heard the old saying? Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words don't hurt. And if you can take the insults of white people for 400 years, then you should be able to take them from your brother. Since you've been turning your cheek on the white man, why not learn to turn your cheek on your brother? He didn't touch you. He was just ignorant. If he knew better, he would do better. But you and I know better. And so the saying goes that when you see a fool and a wise man argue, you cannot tell who's the fool. That means the wise man is supposed to stay up here. If the fool tries to bring you down, just address him peace and move on to where you got to go. Well, a Muslim is the wisest of the men. Not only does he know the knowledge of God, but we are taught and trained in the knowledge of God's people. So we must strive as Muslims to get out of this constant bickering and arguing thing with the people of God. We know they're God's people. They are righteous by nature, but they have been made other than right by circumstance. Our people can be very disrespectful, very argumentative, very ignorant and savage at times, but the Quran says when the ignorant address you, say peace and move on. That doesn't make you weak. It actually makes you stronger. It shows that you have a measure of control. And it is the control, the mind over matter, that separates the man from the gorilla. The gorilla is strong, but he lacks the reasoning skills. He lacks the ability to use good judgment. But man, created in the image of the God, is the highest form of human life. Man is the only being on the earth that actually has God's intelligence deposited into his brain. So when we know better, we have to do better. So a Muslim is never to be the aggressor. He has to be a peacemaker. His demeanor really should be that of a meek, humble servant of God. I used to wonder why the Bible said, "Blessed are the meek, for the meek shall inherit the earth." But it's because the meek are the most humble of the people. And when you're humble and meek, you don't have to worry because God will back you up 100%. See, the Muslims are real submissive and meek. And we don't have to worry about people bothering us because the other side of meek and humble is the divine wrath of God that is triggered once you violate the principle of meekness. In other words, we go into the community with no weapons, no guns, to help improve our people's life, to sell them papers, to teach them what we know. We are forbidden by our God to carry as much as a penknife. Yet we go into the worst community, early in the morning, late at night, and we're peaceful. Well, you say you got to be a fool, man, to go into the black community with no weapon and trying to act humble. You better go in either packing or talking loud. See, Negroes are like animals in the kingdom, you know. Certain animals God or Mother Nature made where they have a brassy kind of sound, you know what I mean? That's to keep people away from them, keep animals away from them. One bird has a big chest that he throws up. Is that right or wrong? The gorilla beats his chest. The lion roars. This is Mother Nature's way of helping them to keep people away from them. Is that right or wrong? Well, we do that too in the ghetto. We talk big stuff, loud stuff. Usually the one that talk the loudest can't do nothing. But he learned that principle. I'm talking loud to back you up off of me. See, but when you know your power and you know God, you can walk humbly, because once someone transgresses and breaks the peace, that's when all hell breaks loose, and the Muslim then is ordered in the Quran to fight with those who fight with us. We're ordered to do that. I'm sorry, Christian brothers and sisters. You've been instructed to turn the other cheek. That's what they instructed you to do. But Jesus didn't talk about turning the other cheek. Upon his return, he said blood would run up the horse's bridle. This was a teaching they gave the slave. If the white man believed in turning the other cheek, how come he's been the most brutal warmonger on the face of the earth? The American Revolutionary soldiers didn't turn the other cheek against Britain. The white man didn't turn the other cheek in Pearl Harbor when Japan bombed America. She never turns the other cheek, but he lulled the slave to sleep on the plantation, teaching you to turn the other cheek. Now, you don't turn no other cheek. Once a man hits you on your cheek, then you try and put him in the cemetery. You say, that's terrible. To teach like that, you, after all, are a minister of the gospel. Yeah, but we are those ministers like Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser, those revolutionary preachers that would preach, but they would also put the Bible down and knock you out if necessary. That's the kind of man of God we need. We need warrior men of God. You're not going to pray that drug dealer off the corner. You're not going to pray the thief and the criminal out of your community. You must be willing to bless him, but also put a foot in his backside if he won't yield to the law and order of God that you're trying to establish in the community. See, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan teaches us that once we've been humble, once we've tried to avoid conflict, once we've not responded to insults and barbs, but we have not been aggressive, then after the peace is violated, then it's in our interest to defend ourselves by fighting with those who fight with us. But we must try and be humble, even in a world like this. The Holy Quran in the 23rd surah says, successful indeed are the believers who are humble in their prayers and who shun what is vain. You know, a lot of people in religion, they want to make a vain and glorious pronouncement of their faith. I was on the subway one day, and I saw a brother around the time of the Muslim afternoon prayer, actually in the subway, on the floor in the subway, get on his knees and make salah. I looked at the brother, and be it far from me to judge him, because I don't know his sincerity or his lack thereof. So he could have been a very sincere brother. But when we do things like that, sometimes it's vanity. We want to be seen of men. So Jesus told those that were listening to him, when you fast, don't walk around with a long face so that men can see that you fast. I'm fasting today. I don't feel too good. I'm on a fast. You defeat the purpose of the fast. That's a vain show. He said, be humble, man. So the Quran is saying prayers are for Allah. Prayers are to be sincere and humble, not a glorious show for vain glory. Too many religious people are vain. They love to say what they don't do. You meet a man and the first thing he's doing is telling you, well, I'm sanctified, and I don't smoke, I don't drink, we don't do this. Oh no, I don't do that, I don't do that. See, that is what you call being self-righteous. You want to be known as a religious person more for what you do than what you don't do. Is that right or wrong? After all, you don't get credit with God for what you don't do. You get credit with God for what you do. That's where you get credit with Allah. We've got to shun what is vain. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan says to us that arrogance is a characteristic that Allah most hates. Allah hates arrogance. And as well, he should hate arrogance. And as well, we as Muslims should strive never to be arrogant people. This is the worst thing that a religious person can do, become an arrogant person. What is arrogance, brothers and sisters? I'd like to go to the Quran to help you to get a picture of it. In the 7th surah of the Quran, we get a picture of God asking the angels to make obeisance to one that they believe is less than them. All of the angels made obeisance, but one named Iblis. God asked Iblis, what is the reason that thou art not with those who make obeisance? You know what Iblis said? He said, I'm not going to make obeisance to a mortal whom thou hast created of sounding clay and of black mud. Well, why won't you submit, Iblis, to black mud, to clay? Because in Iblis' mind, he was made of fire. He felt he was superior to Adam. Therefore, he refused to bow down to Adam, even though the God that he was supposed to be under told him to make obeisance. When you don't follow the instructions of God, you don't hurt the one that God tells you to submit to. You only hurt yourself, because it was not Adam who Iblis was refusing, but it was actually the very God that created him that he was refusing. Do you understand? Now, where does the arrogance come in? The arrogance comes in when Iblis, who was made of fire, felt that he was superior to Adam because Adam was made of mud. See, arrogance is when you think more of yourself than you should. This makes one arrogant. You are arrogant when you look at yourself, according to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, as the center of everything. We are not the center of everything. God is the center of everything, and we are nothing except that we bow down and act in obedience with the statutes, the dictates, and the laws of God. What makes us great? What makes men arrogant? You look at white people in this society. This people who don't have pigmentation, who lack melanin, who have a steely, cold expression and character and look to match. But yet they travel in the earth. When they met the black African, their arrogance made them think they were better than these human beings. When they met the red man, their arrogance made them think they were better than the red man, superior to the red man. When they met the brown man of Asia, they felt in their heart of hearts that they were above, they were superior, they were greater, they were better than the peoples of the earth. And that's why raping, robbing, enslaving meant nothing to them. The arrogant ones in this society, those 38 families that control 80% of the world's resources, the DuPonts, the Rockefellers, they are arrogant people who believe because they have more, which is a blessing from the God or a trial from the God. But from that position that God himself is the author of, not them, they look down on other people. They feel themselves superior to other people. And arrogance, brothers and sisters, is the very thing that blinds humanity. See, some of the blindest people in this society are not people who can't see, but they are people who think better of themselves. Some people are more gifted in one particular area, and they think themselves to be superior than other people. Look at the athlete. He just scored 45 points. He's got it going on, as they say. After the game, you're his fan. You run up to him. Can I have your autograph? I ain't got time today, man. I told you I'm not signing no autograph. Back up off of me, man. And he walked away with his chest stuck out. But what makes the athlete think he's better? I'm 6'11". I can dunk. I scored 50 points. I make $2 million a year. Surely I'm better than the little lowly fan. Look at the movie star. You've watched him on the screen. You know him. You love him. You see him. You try and reach out to touch. He smacks your hand away. You go to embrace him. He recoils. He stiff-arms you. She stiff-arms you. Why? Hey, I'm famous. Didn't you just see me on the screen, man? You look at my movie. I live in Beverly Hills, man. See, what they're really saying is they think they're better. And that's why I love the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Because to me, he's the biggest star that there is. And when the junkie, when the crackhead walks up to our leader and teacher, even with his fine suit on, He embraces the one that they call a crackhead, because at the root of that quote-unquote crackhead is a child of God and his brother. He doesn't see himself better than the people of God. He is of the people of God, and even more a servant of the people of God. Because when you're humble, you think as an arrogant person thinks more of himself. A humble person thinks less of himself. And so a humble person don't mind getting down in order to lift his brother up on his shoulder. And that's why men of God are styled as servants of the people. Jesus was a servant of the people. Farrakhan is a servant of the people, but yet we have stars and entertainers and quote-unquote important people that feel like they're above. Well, brothers and sisters, you should never feel that way, because I don't care what talent or gift you have, it comes from God. God made you jump high. God made your smile beautiful. God made your acting wonderful. God made your personality magnetic or charismatic. So if God is the author of that, then don't be like Iblis and use a characteristic that you have that you are not the author of to say you are better than another child of God who God made special in his unique way that's different than he made you. You know, if you have straight hair, that's the way God made you. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a very beautiful thing, because that's yours, and that's the way God made you. If you got nappy hair, that's beautiful. That's the way God made you. But when we begin to use these characteristics that we have nothing to do with, to put each other down, to put another human being down, to say, I'm better, and that's when we go off the path and we're moving into arrogance, because now we think more of ourselves than we should. Well, I've been in the mosque 30 years. Surely I'm better than the new brother. Not necessarily. Could be that the new brother's better than you, because maybe it was harder for him to get to the mosque in a crazy world like this than it was for you to get here a few years ago. I mean, the point is, you don't use that kind of logic, because that logic is bound to see you come up short. Iblis was made of fire. Adam was made of dust. Fire is, in some respects, more valuable than dust, than clay. But you can take dust, I heard the Honorable Louis Farrakhan say, and put a fire out, can't you? Fire can keep you warm, can it? But a brick structure made from the earth, clay, can keep you warm too. Is that right or wrong? So it's all in how you look at your characteristics. It's all in how you look at your God-given gifts. But one thing is for certain, they all come from Allah. You didn't author nothing, therefore you can't claim credit for no greatness that you have. That's why we give all praise to Allah. We in the Nation of Islam, we don't take accolades. When you lay accolades on us, the first thing you will hear us say is all praise is due to Allah. That's an act of humility. Many of you don't understand why we say that. When you say, oh brother, you all are great, the nation, blah, 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 the Muslim brother and sister will say, all praise is due to Allah. You say, what's wrong with this cat, man? Is he real? Yes, he's real. He just understands how little of nothing that we are, and how much of God, how much God is. See, you don't ever take on for yourself the title of greatness. And that's the one mistake Muhammad Ali made. He said, I am the greatest. No, Allah is the greatest. And maybe Allah made him the greatest fighter. But you gotta make that clear. Make that plain to yourself. Because maybe you don't understand. Allah well knows that he's the greatest. And that's why Ali today, as glib as he was yesterday, I mean, you never thought you'd see a day when that man couldn't speak. But today he can't speak. And I'm not suggesting that that's the chastisement of Allah. What it shows us is no matter how great we may seem, Allah is the master of all circumstances. You up today, but you down tomorrow. But one thing is for certain, Allah is God. He is always God. He is always worthy of praise and honor. And that's why every believer should strive to be humble in the sight of God. Job was a beautiful brother. He was rich and powerful. But in a day, he lost everything he had, almost in an instant. And then one trial befell him after another. But Job never said, I don't deserve this. He never cursed his God. He suffered in humility, understanding that God is the giver of blessings and the one that brings down cursings. But Job was reconciled that whatever God willed, he would suffer. And that's the way we got to be. There are some things that you can change, but there are other things you can't. And that's why I love the Christian prayer that says you thank God for, and you ask him for the strength to change the things that you can change, serenity to accept the things that you can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. But in all that we suffer, let's strive to be humble. You know, our leader is such a beautiful example of humility. Right. That's right. How many men do you know that if they commanded an army of men, I mean, I don't know what these leaders think about when they condemn Farrakhan. Particularly those that do it out of envy and unjustly. The ones that plot against him. Don't they know this man commands an army of men who love him, that if he were not such a righteous man of God, those men that love him would deal with anybody that hated him. He's that kind of man with that kind of power. He has sisters, an army of sisters that love him equally as much. They say hell have no fury like a scorned woman. But yet Farrakhan, with all of this power, he literally, from his own people, he takes a cursing and gives back a blessing. With his own people, he has absolutely turned the other cheek. Do you understand? Yes, sir. With his own people, yes, sir, he's turned the other cheek. Because if you're going to redeem a people, you have to pay a price for their redemption. And when you're going to redeem our people, one of the prices that we have to pay is to remove arrogance from our character. We have to be what the scripture calls long-suffering. Because our people have been messed up by the slave master. And because we are so messed up, You really have to love black people more than they hate you and themselves if you're going to raise them up. And Farrakhan is a beautiful example of that, and he could not do it unless he was a humble servant of Almighty God Allah. Humility is actually a very powerful disposition to have. Humility, according to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is the quality or condition of being humble. One who is humble is modest, unpretentious, unassuming, and submissive. You know, in this world, a lot of people try and put on airs to sort of accentuate their importance. You know, men travel with big entourages. What is that designed to do? Unless it's for security purposes. People, he has absolutely turned the other cheek. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
With his own people.
Yes, sir.
He's turned the other cheek. Because if you're going to redeem a people, you have to pay a price for their redemption. And when you're going to redeem our people, one of the prices that we have to pay is to remove arrogance from our character. We have to be what the scripture calls long-suffering. Because our people have been messed up by the slave master. And because we are so messed up, you really have to love black people more than they hate you and themselves if you're going to raise them up. And Farrakhan is a beautiful example of that, and he could not do it unless he was a humble servant of Almighty God Allah. Humility is actually a very powerful disposition to have. Humility, according to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is the quality or condition of being humble. One who is humble is modest, unpretentious, unassuming, and submissive. You know, in this world, a lot of people try and put on airs to sort of accentuate their importance. You know, men travel with big entourages. What is that designed to do? Unless it's for security purposes.